G'day guys, Mr. Oz Adventure here, and I am test riding the Honda Africa Twin right now. So you got a 21-inch front wheel there, you got an 18-inch rear wheel, you got no engine protection on this at all, no centre stand. There's the standard exhaust system. It's quite a good looking bike, I think. Nissan brakes front and rear. First thoughts when I first hop on, it's a little bit taller than my bike, but I can still comfortably reach the ground okay. Seating position feels nice. Alrighty, I feel so tall on this. I feel like I'm sitting up a fair way. The seat feels nice and comfortable. I like it, but it feels weird. It feels very different. It feels like I'm sitting more on top of it rather than in it, if you know what I mean. I feel like I'm just, right on top of the bike. Slow speed so far, it feels pretty good. It feels quite manoeuvrable. It is a long way off the ground compared to my V-Strom. You know, it's a good adventure touring bike. It's going to be high off the ground. That is its purpose. Should handle these speed humps with ease. Oh yes, hardly even felt them. Gear change, felt easy enough. Some bikes you hop on and the gear levers just don't feel right. They feel like they're in a weird spot, but this feels quite nice. So this is a 998cc parallel twin, Honda Africa Twin, also known as a CRF 1000L. I've gone for the manual version, the version that has a clutch and has gears, as opposed to the DCT version. I wouldn't mind test riding that as well, but I don't think I'll get the chance to do that today. I know I am a little bit further off the ground compared to my bike, but I just feel like I'm sitting miles above the tank and the screen and everything. I know you can lower the seat position on this, so maybe it's in its higher position at the moment. Whoa, yes! Certainly got enough power, that's for sure. It's definitely got heaps of power. I really do like the sound of it. So I'm cruising along at 100 kilometers an hour roughly at the moment. I'm in 6th gear. One thing I don't like is the tacho. I'm used to a bigger tacho, so you can actually look at the revs a little bit clearer. So in top gear at about 100 kilometers an hour, it's really hard to read what the tacho is telling me and concentrate on the road at the same time. But it's just under 4,000 revs, about 3,500 revs I think. Even sitting here nicely cruising at 100 kilometers an hour in top gear, I can just drop down to about 85 kilometers an hour, twist on the throttle. It bogs down slightly, but it doesn't take much for it to pick up pace again. It's definitely got plenty of that torque which you would expect from a big twin. The screen seems fairly small, but it appears to be working okay, I guess. I'm getting a little bit of wind noise around the head. I guess that could be adjusted maybe. The screen, the mirrors seem a little bit small, but the view in them is quite adequate. The angle of the mirrors is really good. I can see out there perfectly. Well, just giving the brakes a bit of a test now under some hard braking from 100 kilometers an hour down to 60. The brakes didn't feel overly sensitive, but they were nice and firm and did the trick with hardly any pressure on the brake lever. The acceleration in top gear from 100 kilometers an hour up to 160 kilometers an hour is quite sufficient. It's got heaps of power there. Not that I actually did that, I'm fibbing. I didn't really go to 160 kilometers an hour because that would be illegal. It doesn't feel like a really big bike throwing it around in these corners in the hills. Even though it's a big bike to sit on and you've got a fair bit of ground clearance, you can still throw it around in the hills quite easily. I like it. Let's see how she goes with a bit of slow manoeuvring and car park action. Got some loose gravel here. Quite easy. That's not too bad at all. If I was to pick a downside on the bike at all, I would pick on the dash. I'm not a fan of the dash. It's easy enough to see which gear you're in and your speed, but the fuel gauge, the tacho and the temperature gauge are quite hard to read while you're moving, and that's the sort of thing you really want to be looking at when you're riding, and I think it's a bit hard to read on this bike. The other downside I've read about the bike is it has a bit of a smaller fuel tank, so it's got a bit of a smaller fuel range than you would expect from an adventure touring motorcycle such as this. Whereas its competitors might get 400 to 500 kilometres out of a tank. Apparently you're struggling to get 400 out of a tank with this. You're more likely to get 300. I obviously haven't experienced that myself because this is only a short test ride. I'm just going off what I've read in other reviews. So this is definitely the base model. It doesn't come with hand guards, it doesn't come with crash bars or any engine protection, bash plate, nothing like that. It doesn't have ABS and it doesn't have traction control. The next version up has all that I just mentioned. The traction control and the ABS are very important, I would feel, and the protection also for an adventure touring bike. You want the hand guards, you want the bash plates, you want the engine protection if you're going to go anywhere off-road. Well, unsurprisingly, my verdict is I like it. That's my official verdict. I like it. Tends to be my official verdict after I test ride any bike really, but overall this is a good bike. It feels great, it feels easy to ride, it doesn't feel anywhere near as big as it is, it doesn't feel heavy, it's quite nimble to throw from side to side quite easily. It's got heaps of power. The only downside I think is those gauges are a little bit hard to read, but once I turned around and the sun was facing at the gauges over my shoulder, it was a little bit easier to read the fuel and the temperature gauges and the tacho, but I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, the overall seating position, the handlebars and everything, it feels really comfortable. The handlebars feel a little bit wider maybe than my bike. Everything feels comfortable and in the right spot. Standing up on the pegs feels good. I can still reach the handlebars quite easily. I don't feel like I need risers on them or anything like that. I would have liked to have tested one of the more advanced versions that has a few more options so I could play around with those, but unfortunately this is just the base model and there's not much I could really do there but just ride and get an overall feel for the bike, and overall it feels good. I don't feel like I'm sitting up on the bike as much as I did when I first hopped on it, but I mean, I've gotten used to it over the last 20-25 minutes or so a little bit. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of that. I'll see you next time.